We're going to watch this video in just a minute from Sam Shamoon, where he completely annihilates Islam and shows that the Kaaba and Islam is 100% a pagan religion and a false religion. And this is very important that we look at this in the times that we're in, because Islam is taking over in many ways. Here we can see in a Sharia compliant Muslim city in the heart of Texas. That is how it begins. When Islam starts to take over in every single nation that they go into, they get little footholds and then they completely take over. And just one little city that is Sharia compliant could grow to states, could grow to nations. And we know the history of them, and they could very well play into the multiple prophecies in the end times, or whatever it is, whether it's end times prophecy or whether it's just an Islamic takeover. Either way, it's really bad, and we need to completely be against it. And it's a false religion, as we will very clearly see here in just a minute. This is some video from driving around Texas in some of what the street names are named there. This is not even in a Muslim neighborhood, and these streets are named after different Muslim things.
Drive. Subhanallah. Check out these homes. We are looking at these homes here in Irving, Texas. There's another brother. Assalamu alaikum, brother. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. This is ideal life.
This is
for
in
Muslims,
Texas,
where you can say salam to everybody. Subhanallah. Amal Saleh Drive and Salma Jamil Court. I've never seen a place like this.
So there's the street names. And as he was just saying, I've never seen a place like this. Well, one thing you can say for certain is you almost never see a place that looks like that that's an Islamic nation. Very rarely. Some nations, like in Saudi Arabia, where they're just not very radical Muslims, or like lukewarm Muslims, and then they have a lot of resources like oil, then they become pretty prosperous. But look at every single nation in the world that is a Muslim majority. You're not going there on vacation. You're not thinking about that. In fact, you stay as far away from there as possible. And it's 100% because it's an Islamic regime, an Islamic nation. It destroys everywhere it goes. And that's because that's what it teaches. When Muslims are kind and they're nice and they don't do that, it's because they're lukewarm Muslims. Muslims who are very violent, and ones who like live in Afghanistan and Iran and Al-Qaeda and ISIS, those are full on, those are not lukewarm Muslims. Those are 100% Quran believing and following Muslims. They're spreading all over the world, not only just in Texas. UK Council withdraws application to ban public prayer and evangelism. The UK falling farther down the drains because they've let Islam in their front door. Islam is very pushy, and they don't take no for an answer. And the UK is very weak, and they're just bowing down to them, even to the point where a Christian nation, they were getting rid of Easter celebrations at some of the schools, and even here trying to potentially criminalize Christian evangelism, street evangelism in a Christian nation. What's the cause of that? It's because of Islam. It's also because of prophecy as well. This is going to be the tide of the future. This will eventually come down the line. But again, we don't know when that happens. What if the end times isn't for 200 years, 100 years? We want to stand up for what's good and for what's right and speak out against what's wrong. So future generations, if the end times aren't for hundreds of years, then future generations can live in as much peace as possible. And the best way to do that is to get rid of Islam as fast as possible. So here, I've used some clips from this video as well. In the past, I've done some videos on this topic, but this just absolutely obliterates Islam and shows that it's a completely false religion. And even ChatGPT can't lie when you look up what it has to say. And we could maybe fact check some of the stuff that he says in this video if we want, as he brings it up. But it says what the truth is, because it's the flat out truth. Did the Kaaba used to be a pagan site? Yes, the Kaaba in Mecca was originally a pagan site before Islam, and so it practically continued on. It just is. They just replaced the God. That's exactly what happened. Did the Prophet Muhammad try to, can't say that, probably shouldn't say that, end his life? Well, yes, according to this, he got the revelation, and it says that he had a period of anguish, and then he wanted to throw himself off of a mountain after the supposed angel Gabriel gave him the revelation of Islam. So you supposedly get the revelation of God from an angel of God, and your first thought is to jump off a mountain? Sounds more like a fallen angel demonic encounter to me. And then Here I put, did Muhammad marry a 9-year-old, which he did, but for some reason it wrote it out. Then ChatGPT changed it and said this might go against our policy. I mean, it's an Islamic belief. So I added the false title prophet in here, and it gave me the explanation then, because when you say Prophet Muhammad, it's like that's how they talk about him. So maybe it seemed more respectable, but they continued to give the truth. Yes, according to authentic early Islamic sources, Prophet Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 years old. Yes, 6 years old, and the marriage was consummated when she was 9. I don't care if they say that that was status quo at the time. Even if it was, I mean, that was not status quo for a lot of people around the world. Earlier marriages like that were possible, but like in the Bible, what it says, it wasn't until they became a woman and they started to have the monthly thing that women have. That is when at least men would marry in the Bible, which is still young and strange, but nothing. How could any man look at a 6-year-old woman and want to marry her? And this is the guy who supposedly had a revelation from God and wanted to jump off a mountain. You can see why he wants to jump off a mountain. He married a 6-year-old. The guy's sick in the head. So let's listen to a little bit. Let's just watch this whole video because it exposes, Islam, how it has to be exposed on a massive level. And so that's what we need.
Folks, you don't understand what this is going to do to Islam. The majority of Muslims don't know this, and they'll be shocked to hear this, and they'll say you're lying. They don't know this. They'll be shocked. Now here, a leading Islamic scholar, Islamicist, he's not Muslim, but he's a leading authority on Islam, Fred McGraw-Donner. Notice what he says. At the center of the town was the shrine called the Kaaba, a large cubical building with a sacred black stone affixed in one corner. That was the sanctuary to the pagan god Hubal. What are some of the pagan practices that Muhammad adopted? This is Karen Armstrong. They would kiss the black stone embedded in the wall of the Kaaba, which was probably a meteorite that had once hurled to the ground. Oh, so wait, the pagans before Muhammad used to kiss the black stone and Muhammad adopted it? Now we know why the pagans did it. Why is Muhammad doing it? Then she says in that same source.
So this is what, I mean, Muslims have no answer for this because there is none. So the same exact religious practices that they were involved in, that the people of the town of Mecca were involved in, where the black stone is, the Kaaba, where they all go circle around it and kiss the black stone. Those same practices were going on at that exact same site before Muhammad, before the Quran, before Islam. So it doesn't make sense. If the first revelation of God was given to Muhammad and then he now brought this to the world, supposedly, why would he go to a false god religious site and use the same exact practices, but then say that Allah now likes him? Makes no sense. One false god was replaced for the other. That's what Muhammad did. All the false gods, the main one at the Kaaba was Hubal, was just replaced with Allah. That's exactly what happened. I mean, if you do the comparison to in Christianity or in early Judaism, what that would look like, that would be like if Moses got the revelation from God and then went to the Canaanites and started doing sorcery, offering babies burnt in the fire to God like they would to Moloch, and doing the false religious practices of the time to the other false gods. It makes no sense. Why would the real God want the same things done to the false god? Just goes to show, it's just replaced same actions to a different false god, proving that it's not a real god at all. Allah is not the real God.
Officially, the shrine was dedicated to Hubal, an Nabatean deity, and there was 360 idols arranged around the Kaaba, probably representing the days of the year. Okay, Karen Armstrong, you are not hostile to Islam. You're very friendly to Islam, and you bend over backwards to appease Muslims. And Muslims even invite you to lecture in their meetings, and they praise your books. And you admit that the shrine was officially dedicated to Hubal? Then who is Allah? If the Kaaba is the shrine of Allah, but it's the shrine of Hubal, and you can't have a shrine for more than one God. Here, connect the dots, the necessary logical inference and conclusion, Allah was the name of Hubal, Hubal was the name of Allah. How do you get around it? And even here, F.E. Peters, in his book, Hajj, he says the same thing, F.E. Peters. This Muslim historian says, Amr ibn Luhay, pay attention, where does this come from? Amr ibn Luhay brought with him to Mecca an idol called Hubal from the land of Hit in Mesopotamia. Hubal was one of the greatest idols, so he set it up at the well inside the Kaaba in order for the people to worship it. Thus, a man coming back from a journey would visit it and circumambulate the house before going to his family and would shave his hair before it, all of which Muslims do. Circumambulate the Kaaba and shave their heads. Here, the source is saying the pagans were doing that before Muhammad. Folks, is it sinking in? Are you?
I think, I can't remember if I mentioned that before, but not only that, they were, going to kiss the stone at the Kaaba, same exact building, the same stone building that's there today is the same building that they were using before with the false gods, but they would also go shave their heads and circle around it. Another false god action, according to the ancient sources of what the pagans were doing at the time in Mecca and in Medina. And that's exactly what they continue to do this very day, but supposedly for Allah. And they don't see the difference there and how one was for a false god, but now it's for a real god. It's very odd that they can't make these things put together in their mind. It's like completely common sense.
Are you getting it? Now, are you ready for the shocker? You thought this blew you away. Did you know that the Muslim scholars till this day have no idea what the Arabic word samad means? That's chapter 112, verse 2 of the Quran. If you read it in Arabic, it says Allahu Samad. Allahu Samad. What does Samad mean? They have no idea. Samad. Now here's where you're going to get shocked. If Hubal was actually Baal, pay attention. Hubal was actually Baal, and the Arab pagans knew that was Baal. But in time, the connection became lost and marred by Muslims, by Muhammad and his followers, because they didn't want Allah to be identified with Baal. Then it shouldn't surprise us that certain words connected with Baal worship, their meanings became marred and confused and lost as time went on, as Allah was disassociated with Baal. If Hubal was Baal, and the evidence shows he was, but then in time, Muhammad and his followers tried to disassociate Allah from Hubal so that the connection became lost, then it shouldn't surprise us that words associated with Hubal, with Baal, that were then taken over by Muslims in reference to Allah, their meanings would be lost too. But if you go back in history and see the connection of these words with Baal, then it would make sense. Guess what, folks? We found an inscription, a Ugaritic inscription with the phrase Baal Samad, Lord of Samad, and Samad meant club, the Lord of the club, because Baal was depicted with a club in his hand. Here it is. This comes from Franz Rosenthal. Franz Rosenthal, a scholar of Islam, and he's talking about the Muslims being confused over the word Samad. And now he explains why they may have been confused. Let me read. There is enough room for suspicion to permit us having a look at some outside evidence. There we encounter a noteworthy phenomenon, the not infrequent religious connotation of the root Samad. In Ugaritic, that's a place in Canaan, Canaanite worship. Samad appears as a stick or club that is wielded by Baal. In the Kilamu inscription, line 15, we find Baal Samad, apparently Baal as the owner of his divine club. In the Bible, the adherence of the Israelites to Baal of Peor is expressed by the Nepal of the root Samad. So even the word Samad appears in the Hebrew Bible in reference to Baal, even in the Old Testament. The verb that is translated by the Septuagint, hatalusi, the use of the verb doubtlessly reflects North Canaanite religious terminology. From Arabic sources, we learned that an idol of Ad was allegedly called Samud, which brings us rather close to the environment of Muhammad. Now watch this. In view of this material, the suggestion may be made that as-Samad in the Quran is a survival of an ancient northwest Semitic religious term, which may no longer have been understood by Muhammad himself or by the old poets. Did you catch it? Such hesitation is what we'd expect if we are dealing with a pagan survival from the early period of revelation. Wow. Did you catch it? We now have archaeological evidence showing Samad was associated with Baal. Baal Samad, the Lord of the club, because Baal was depicted with a club. So Hubal comes from Syria, maybe Jordan, an idol of the Moabites, and the Moabites worship Baal. Hubal then comes to Mecca. He becomes the chief god of Mecca, of the Kaaba. So that means Hubal would be the Arabic form of Baal, either Ha-Baal or Hubal, he is Baal. And then Samad would have been associated with Baal. But when the Muslims purified Allah from his connection to Baal, they kept Samad but did not realize its pagan root and origin and implication. You with me there?
So as you can see, there's a connection there with one of the things they say, the Sa'amad thing. That's something that they say in connection with how they talk about Allah. And this is one of the reasons why when you actually look at the Quran and how it spread throughout the world, and the Hadiths, which are supposedly the teachings and the words of Muhammad outside of the Quran, when they compiled these things together, the old ones, they burned them all. And the reason that they did that, obviously, is for obvious reasons. I mean, first off, It would take, I mean, probably someone with maybe 5th or 6th grade understanding and an IQ level in the 5th or 6th grade to look at the stories of the Bible and then look at the stories of the Quran and not see the comparisons, how like almost every main character besides Muhammad in the Quran was first mentioned in the Bible, and the same stories: Adam, Garden of Eden, Jesus, the Noah, Abraham. I mean, it's the same people 600 years later and then written for a different God, is obviously plagiarized. But then again, they took the old hadiths and the old writings and they burned them. Why is that? If we had those today, there would be so many contradictions. It would be absolutely ridiculous, and Islam would be done as if it shouldn't be already. It's shocking that grown men study these things every day, and some even study the Bible and do not see how this is obviously a plagiarized religion who has its roots in this ancient pagan beliefs that were already there in Mecca.
Okay. Now, let me read Ibn Kathir. The third line of evidence. Who's ready? From Ibn Kathir, one of the greatest Muslim scholars, commentators that ever lived. This isn't my article. This comes from the English translation of Al-Sirah al-Nabawiyya, the biography of Muhammad, the Prophet, by Ibn Kathir. Volume 1, pages 125, 126. Volume 1. Guys, pay attention. Ibn Ishaq stated, it is claimed that when Abdul Muttalib received such opposition from Quraysh over the digging of Zamzam, he vowed that if 10 sons were born to him, who grew up and protected him, he would sacrifice one of them for God at the Kaaba, Allah at the Kaaba. So notice his vow. If I have 10 sons, I will sacrifice one of them for God at Kaaba. Do you remember what the person said earlier? Oh yeah, but Baal demanded human sacrifice. Did you catch what Abdul Muttalib vowed? To sacrifice one of his sons. Oh yeah, but Baal demanded human sacrifice. Did you just catch it? Abdul Muttalib promised that if Allah gave him 10 sons, he would sacrifice one of his sons, a human sacrifice to Allah.
The continued pagan practices from the ancient gods at the Kaaba before Allah and Islam were continued on even in early Islam. And then just there was this transformation from the old false gods there into the mega false god of Allah and Islam. And they even did the same practices, even sacrificing to Baal, which was done, mentioned in the Bible, obviously, and mentioned in many different ancient texts. And even here, to Allah. Crazy.
Baal demanded human sacrifice. Allah demands human sacrifice. Someone's saying, oh yeah, but you know, and then I said, what do you think jihad is if it's not human sacrifice? Okay, so now notice, Abdul Muttalib promised, if you give me 10 sons, I will sacrifice, kill one of them to you. Okay, now watch here. Watch here. Let's see who's going to see this. Who's going to make the connection? Eventually, he had 10 sons grown up whom he knew would give him protection. Their names were Al-Harith, Al-Zubayr, Hajl, Dirar, Al-Muqawwim, Abu Lahib, Al-Abbas, Hamza, Abu Talib, and Abdullah. He assembled them. Let's see who's going to catch this. He assembled them and told them of his vow and asked them to honor his pledge to God Almighty, Allah Azwajal, and all glorious is He. This is in Arabic, it's Allah. God in English, but Arabic, Allah. So he vowed to Allah. Okay. They obeyed and asked him what he wanted them to do. He asked each of them to take an arrow, write his name on it, and return to him. Now watch this. Remember, he's going to go to Allah and sacrifice. Allah. They did so and went with him inside the Kaaba to the site of their god Hubal, where there was the well in which offerings to the Kaaba would be placed. There, near Hubal, were 7 arrows which they would use for divining a judgment over some matter of consequence, a question of blood money, kinship, or the like. They would come to Hubal to seek a resolution, accepting whatever they were ordered to do or to refrain from. Guys, can you help me understand? He made the vow to Allah. Why is he going to the idol Hubal? And why did Ibn Kathir say this was their god Hubal? And why is he asking Hubal whether he can get out of sacrificing one of his sons? If you made the vow to Allah, why are you going to the idol Hubal? And why did Ibn Kathir say that's your God? The God of Muhammad's family, the God of his grandfather, and his father was Hubal. Okay. Now the tradition.
I mean, there's not going to be any good explanation from Muslims on how or why that is. Why, if they're making one pledge to Allah, in the next moment are they going to the false god of Hubal within the Kaaba and making a pledge to him as well? It's because the lines were still mixed at the time. It's because Satan is a deceiver and a liar, and he fails all the time. It's why the same thing that we see within the globalists around the world, who are definitely evil, trying to take over. their plans fail all the time. God, it says that the leaders of the world, they sit and try to gather and make their plans, and God in the heavens laughs because their plans are going to come to nothing because they're operating with the power of Satan and his demons, and they're always confused and they're always failing and they're always tricking and lying and doing all these different things. And that's exactly what's going on with this false religion and the false gods and all the false practices associated with it. So they make mistakes like this. I mean, it's written all over the place. I mean, it's written all through the Quran. Anybody who's sat and read the Quran would know for sure that is not from a true God, not from a loving God. Prophet Muhammad did not live the life of somebody who should be honorable or should be honored. It could not be more obvious. It's written in the evidence.
It goes on to say, oops, sorry, before it dies out. Okay, this is my article. It goes on to say that the lot fell on Abdullah, Muhammad's father. So Hubal wanted Abdullah to be killed, right? But then the Quran said, no, don't kill him. Make a deal with your God to see if he'll take camels in place, sacrifice camels in his place. Now watch here. Pages 126, 127. It's lengthy, but I think it's worth me reading, and we're done. So they left for Medina, where they found a diviner whose name was Sajah. So they went to a witch. They went to a witch to ask the witch, how can we appease Allah? How can I appease Allah so I don't kill Abdullah? Why would you go to a witch, a soothsayer, to tell you how to appease Allah? Are you catching this? I don't know if it's sinking in. What kind of God is Allah that would allow Abdul Muttalib to go to a soothsayer, a witch, a kahina, one who contacts spirits, to tell him how to appease Allah? And this is Ibn Kathir, one of the greatest Muslim scholars, saying this. Okay. So they left for Medina, where they found the diviner whose name was Sajah, as Yunus bin Bukayr reported from Ibn Ishaq, that was at Khaybar. They rode off again and went to her and sought her advice. Abdul Muttalib telling her of the whole problem regarding him and his son. She told him, leave me today until my attendant spirit comes and I can ask him. Wow. So not only do you go to a witch, a soothsayer, she says, wait, my spirit will show up. In other words, a demon, a Satan. And that demon and Satan will tell you how to ransom your son Abdullah. And Allah is going to accept it. Allah is going to accept it, folks. Allah is going to allow Abdul Muttalib to go to a witch, a soothsayer, and allow an evil spirit, a demon, a spirit, to tell her how to appease Allah, and Allah is going to be okay with it. Now, what would the true God, Jehovah, Yahweh do if an Israelite went looking for a witch and took the advice of the spirit that inspired that witch to appease Jehovah? What would God do, the true God do?
Or go to a false god like Moloch and offer something. Why would you make a pledge to the true God, the one Lord of heaven, and then in the next second go to Moloch and do something like they did in this instance, going to Hubal or going to witches and soothsayers and asking them for direction after God? What would the true God do?
Okay, now watch. Let's keep going.
Think about it.
They left her, and Abdul Muttalib prayed to Allah.
Ridiculous.
So he's praying to Allah. Next day, they went back to her, and she informed them that she had a message. How much is the blood money you prescribe? She asked, 10 camels. Okay, and then they says, okay, go back and present your man as an offering and do the same with 10 camels. Then cast arrows to decide between him and them. If the divining arrows point to him, then add to the number of camels until your God is satisfied. Keep doing this deadening of arrows until it points to the camels, not your son. Okay? And once it points to the camels, then you know that's how many camels you sacrifice to ransom your son Abdullah from being murdered. If it points to the camels, then sacrifice them in his place. That way you will please your God and save your man. Please your God and save your man. So they went back to Mecca. When they had agreed to do so, as she had said, Abdul Muttalib said prayers to God, Allah. Then they offered up Abdullah and the 10 camels as sacrifice and cast the arrow. At that point, the men of Quraysh told Abdul Muttalib, who was standing near Hubal, praying to Allah. Hubal praying to Allah. It's all over. Your God is pleased, O Abdul Muttalib. Wait, earlier it says their God was Hubal, and it says as he's praying to Allah, he's before the statue of Hubal. There you go. Ibn Kathir, pages 126, 127. Here. At this point, the men of Quraysh told Abdul Muttalib, who was standing near Hubal, praying to Allah. Arabic is Allah, a God. It's all over. Your God is pleased, O Abdul Muttalib. But wait, who's his God? Is it Allah or Hubal? Because earlier, Ibn Kathir told us this. Look what he told us, Ibn Kathir. They did so and went with them inside the Kaaba to the side of their God, Hubal. Hold on. Abdul Muttalib prays to Allah by standing in front of the idol Hubal. Hubal is said to be his God and the God of his family. But then the Quraysh said, it's all over. Your God is pleased, O Abdul Muttalib. So I'm really confused. If his God is Hubal and he's praying to Allah, but he's shuffling arrows to the statue Hubal and he's before the statue Hubal praying to Allah, are you trying to convince me that Hubal is not Allah, Allah is not Hubal? Can you help me?
They mixed it up. That's exactly what happened. Is it got mixed up. the stories got mixed up, and it's exactly what happened. And it's even in the history. He actually does another video on this, and if you guys like this video, let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll watch that video together as well, or maybe do a live on it, or I'll make a post on it here as well, because he goes into it in more detail about the history of the Kaaba and how the clan that he was from and the people he was from, their god was Hubal. The main god of the Kaaba was Hubal. And this is exactly what was going on. The same practices that were going on. Again, the circling, the shaving the head, and all these different things going and doing these practices there are exactly what continued on, but for Allah, the supposed true God after. The supposed true God, and why did something too that doesn't even make sense is, why would the true God wait till 600 AD to give a revelation of truth to the world? That doesn't make any sense. When you look at the Bible and the truth of that, when you have Adam and Eve, and then continuing on, Noah, Moses, and Abraham, and the true story of the past that is plagiarized in the Quran in a very bad way, in a very obviously like pretty elementary way, that the true God has been involved with humankind since the beginning of creation. Why would God only start to care about talking to people in 600 AD? And why would he use old sources from old religious texts that supposedly to him are false because they profess that Jesus the Christ is the Messiah, the Son of God? Why would he use those same stories and same people? And then the true revelation came in 600 AD from a guy who's marrying 6-year-olds? I don't think so.
We understand now? Why does Allah accept Abdul Muttalib going to a soothsayer witch? And why does Allah accept a demon telling that witch soothsayer how to appease Allah? And why is Abdul Muttalib going before the statue of Hubal and shuffling arrows and praying to Allah at the statue of Hubal? And if Allah is his God, why did Ibn Kathir say Hubal is his God? What's going on here? What's the conclusion? What's the conclusion, folks? Who is Allah truly? He is Baal, and Baal is another name of Satan. What more proof do you guys need from the Muslim sources when you combine them together that Islam is nothing more than Baal worship repackaged by Satan through his man Muhammad in order to entice the people of God today away from the worship of Jehovah like Baal did during the Old Testament period? How many of you are overwhelmed and shocked by the evidence? And how many of you are now convinced Islam is nothing more than Baal worship repackaged by Satan? How many of you were not aware how much evidence there was to show that Allah is Baal and therefore Satan? Because Baal or Baal is the name of Satan.
It's true. And there is a lot more, because this stream that he did, and again, this is Sam Shamoon. Many of you probably know him. He does a great job countering the absolute lies of Islam. And I think this was from a stream that he did where he mentioned a lot of other things, again, which is in another video where if you guys do like this video, let me know in the comments and we will watch that one as well. But the evidence is overwhelming. The false gods were there from the beginning. The same practices continued on. Even in the own respected Muslim sources say that they were following after false gods and doing practices to false gods in 1 minute and then praying to God, to Allah in the next minute. So why would Allah tell them to do the false god stuff and then everything else? I mean, the evidence is overwhelming. And again, as we're seeing Islam make a terrible impact in the world, starting to make a difference in America. I mean, that's happening in Texas. There's already Dearborn, Michigan, where it's already a completely Muslim city. I mean, the signs there are in Arabic and all these different languages. And so it's starting to take over. And when you read what it teaches, it says that people who don't follow Islam, just one verse, Quran 533, says that those people should have their hands and feet cut off, or they should be killed or crucified or kicked out of the land. That's why when you see every nation where Islam starts to invade, the nation goes downhill massively, crime, and every other thing that you can imagine, because what the Quran teaches is evil and violence, and it's demonic because their God is Hubal, Baal, the same false god that has been deceiving people since the beginning of time in the Old Testament. Another word for Satan, pretty much. And so let's do our best, because, you know, these people want to believe in God, and they even believe a lot of the stories that are even originally in the Bible. And so my prayer is that every single one of those people following Islam, every single Muslim, will see the truth that The true God is the true God of the scriptures. They want to believe, they want to practice, they want to have faith. They need to turn their faith over to the Lord Jesus Christ and to the Bible and the original scriptures and the original stories, which are more than stories, they're the absolute truth. And when they do that, then their life can change. And not only that, the more people who are brought in, the better things will be around us in so many ways. And not only that, but then they will not be led astray and go to an eternity in hell, which is exactly what Satan, Hubal, Allah wants. Let me know, guys, what you think in the comments. If you want more videos like this, again, I hope and pray you're well, and I hope and pray everyone will come to the saving knowledge of the truth of Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God.